In the dim glow of his patrol car's dashboard, Officer Mark Reynolds gripped the steering wheel tighter as he overheard his son's hushed phone conversation drifting from the back seat. "I love you too, Anderson," Jake whispered, his voice cracking with emotion that Mark had never heard before. The words hit Mark like a bullet. His only son, the boy he'd raised to be tough and resilient, was gay, and the revelation shattered the facade of their seemingly perfect family life in suburban Chicago. Mark's mind raced back to his own upbringing in a strict, blue-collar household, where emotions were buried under layers of duty and discipline. As a veteran cop with 20 years on the force, he'd seen the worst of humanity. Addicts, abusers, and those society cast aside. But nothing prepared him for this personal earthquake. He pulled over to the side of the road, pretending to check his radio, while Jake ended the call oblivious to his father's eavesdropping. That night, back home, Mark couldn't sleep, staring at the ceiling as questions swirled. How long had this been going on? Who was Anderson? And worst of all, what would his precinct buddies say if they found out? The next morning, over breakfast, Mark watched Jake closely. His son, a lanky 18-year-old with messy brown hair and a shy smile, was heading off to his senior year of high school. Jake had always been the quiet type, more interested in books and art than sports, which Mark had chalked up to teenage phases. Now, it all made sense in a way that twisted his gut. "Got any plans after school?" Mark asked casually, stirring his coffee. Jake shrugged, mumbling about hanging out with friends. Mark nodded, but inside he was plotting. He needed to know more about this Anderson. By afternoon, Mark used his lunch break to do some digging. As a cop, he had access to basic public records, but he drew the line at abusing his position. Instead, he scrolled through Jake's social media on his phone, something he'd never bothered with before. There it was, photos of Jake with a group of friends, and in one, a boy with striking blue eyes and a warm grin stood a bit too close. Anderson Thompson, tagged in the comments. Mark's heart pounded. Anderson was from a liberal family in the city, the kind Mark had patrolled past during pride parades, waving rainbow flags that made him uncomfortable. That evening, Mark confronted Jake in the living room. "Who's Anderson?" he asked bluntly, holding up his phone. Jake's face drained of color, his eyes widening in panic. "Dad, how did you?" But Mark cut him off. "I heard you last night, in the car." The air thickened with tension. Jake sank onto the couch, tears welling up. "I'm gay, Dad. Anderson is my boyfriend. We've been together for 6 months. Mark felt a surge of anger. Not at Jake, but at himself for not seeing it sooner. "Why didn't you tell me?" he demanded, his voice rough from years of commanding suspects. Jake looked away, his voice barely audible. "Because I was scared. You're a cop. You deal with all that macho stuff at work. And Mom, she left because she couldn't handle your job. I didn't want to add to your burdens." Mark flinched at the mention of his ex-wife, who had divorced him 5 years ago, citing the stress of his unpredictable shifts. He'd raised Jake alone since then, trying to be both parents. "Now this isn't a burden," Mark said, though his words felt hollow. Deep down, he worried about the backlash from his conservative colleagues, from the community where being a cop meant upholding traditional values. Over the next few days, the house felt like a pressure cooker. Mark avoided deep conversations, burying himself in work. At the precinct, he overheard jokes about a recent gay rights protest downtown. "Those rainbow warriors causing traffic again." His partner, Tom, chuckled. Mark forced a laugh, but it stuck in his throat. What if they knew about Jake? Would they see him differently? Treat his son like an outsider? The thought gnawed at him during night patrols, where the city's underbelly reminded him of vulnerability. Meanwhile, Jake confided in Anderson, who encouraged him to give Mark time. Anderson, a confident 19-year-old college freshman studying graphic design, came from an accepting family. "My parents threw me a coming-out party," Anderson had told Jake once, making him envious. But Jake loved his dad. Mark had always been his hero, teaching him to ride a bike, attending every school event despite exhaustion from shifts. Now, that bond felt fragile. One weekend, Mark decided to meet Anderson. He invited him over for dinner, framing it as a casual get-together. Anderson arrived nervous, dressed neatly in a button-up shirt, shaking Mark's hand firmly. "Nice to meet you, sir." Mark sized him up. Polite, articulate, nothing like the stereotypes he'd internalized from years on the job. As they ate, conversation flowed awkwardly at first, but Anderson's passion for art drew Jake out, and soon they were laughing about a shared class project. Mark watched them, a mix of jealousy and curiosity stirring. After Anderson left, he turned to Jake. "He seems like a good kid." Jake's eyes lit up. "He is, Dad. He's helped me a lot." For the first time, Mark felt a crack in his defenses. But doubts lingered. What about the future? Bullying at school? Discrimination in jobs? As a cop, Mark had protected strangers. Now, he had to protect his son from a world that wasn't always kind. Tensions escalated when word got out at Jake's school. A classmate had seen Jake and Anderson holding hands at a mall, and rumors spread like wildfire. Jake came home one day with a black eye, claiming he fell during gym. Mark didn't buy it. "Who did this?" he growled, his cop instincts kicking in. Jake broke down. "Some guys from the football team. They called me names." Rage boiled in Mark. He wanted to storm the school, but Jake begged him not to. "It'll make it worse." That night, Mark called his sister, Emily, the only family he trusted. "Jake's gay," he blurted out. Emily, a teacher in New York, sighed. "And? He's still your son." Her acceptance contrasted with Mark's turmoil. "But what if it ruins his life?" Mark asked. Emily challenged him. "Or what if your reaction does?" Her words hit hard, forcing Mark to confront his biases. The following week, a community event tested everything. The local police department hosted a family day picnic, where officers brought their kids. Mark had always attended proudly with Jake. This year, Jake wanted to bring Anderson. "Please, Dad, it means a lot." Mark hesitated, imagining the stares, the whispers, but seeing Jake's hopeful face, he agreed. At the picnic, heads turned when Jake introduced Anderson as his boyfriend. Tom, Mark's partner, raised an eyebrow. "Didn't see that coming, buddy." Mark braced for judgment, but Tom clapped him on the back. "Takes guts. Proud of you for supporting him." Not everyone was as kind. A few older officers muttered, and one even pulled Mark aside. "This could affect your reputation, you know?" Mark's response surprised even himself. "My son's happiness matters more than gossip." As the day wore on, Mark saw Jake beaming, chatting freely with others. For the first time, his son looked unburdened. That evening, back home, Mark pulled Jake into a hug. "I'm sorry if I made you feel like you couldn't tell me." Jake hugged back tightly. "Thanks, Dad. I was scared you'd hate me." Mark shook his head. "Never. You're my kid." But the story wasn't over. Conflicts arose when Mark's ex-wife, Linda, found out through mutual friends. She called, furious. "How could you let this happen? It's because you weren't around enough." Mark defended Jake fiercely. "This isn't something to let happen. It's who he is." Their argument reopened old wounds, but it also united Mark and Jake closer. Then came the biggest challenge. A hate crime in the neighborhood. A gay couple was assaulted, and Mark was assigned to the case. Investigating, he saw parallels to Jake's potential dangers. It fueled his determination to advocate for change within the force. He started attending sensitivity training sessions, surprising his colleagues. Jake and Anderson's relationship deepened, facing their own hurdles. Anderson's family welcomed Jake, but societal pressures tested their bond. During a school debate on LGBTQ rights, Jake spoke up, earning both applause and backlash. Mark attended, sitting in the back, his heart swelling with pride. As months passed, Mark's transformation became evident. He volunteered at a local LGBTQ center, using his position to bridge gaps between law enforcement and the community. Jake flourished, applying to colleges with Anderson's support. Yet not all was smooth. A promotion opportunity arose for Mark, but rumors suggested his family situation might hinder it. He faced a choice: downplay Jake's identity or stand firm. Choosing the latter, he confronted his chief. If supporting my son costs me a badge, so be it. The chief, unexpectedly, commended his integrity. In the end, the family found a new normal. Mark, Jake, and Anderson shared holidays, laughter filling the once tense home. But the journey highlighted society's divides. Acceptance versus prejudice. Love versus fear. Is it true that unconditional parental love can truly dismantle deep-rooted societal biases? The revelation had rippled through Mark's life like a stone in still water, but the waves were just beginning. After the picnic, Mark noticed subtle shifts at work. Colleagues who once shared locker room banter now eyed him cautiously, as if his son's orientation had painted a target on his back. One afternoon, during a briefing, Sergeant Hale cracked a joke about rainbow patrols. Laughter echoed, but Mark stayed silent, his jaw clenched. Later, in the parking lot, Hale approached. "Hey, Reynolds, no hard feelings, right? Just ribbing." Mark met his gaze steadily. "My son's gay. Jokes like that aren't funny to me anymore." Hale blinked, mumbling an apology before slinking away. At home, Jake navigated his own battles. High school hallways buzzed with whispers. "Reynolds' kid is queer," kids sneered. Jake's best friend, Sarah, stood by him, but others distanced themselves. One day, the principal called Mark about an incident. Jake had been shoved into a locker. "We take bullying seriously," the principal assured, but Mark saw red. He met with the school board demanding better policies. "This isn't just about my son. It's about every kid who feels unsafe." His advocacy surprised Jake, who later said, "Dad, you're like a different person." Anderson became a fixture in their lives, often studying with Jake in the living room. Mark grew fond of him, appreciating how he brought out Jake's confidence. But doubts crept in during quiet moments. What if this was a phase? What if Jake got hurt? Mark confided in Emily over video calls. "I want to protect him, but I can't shield him from everything." Emily nodded. "That's parenting. Let him live." A turning point came during a family trip to New York for Emily's birthday. Mark, Jake, and Anderson explored the city, visiting Stonewall in A Symbol of Gay Rights History. Jake's eyes widened at the stories of riots and resilience. "This is where it all started," Anderson explained passionately. Mark listened, feeling a pang of ignorance. That night, over dinner, he admitted, "I never understood before, but seeing you two, it makes sense now." Back in Chicago, reality hit hard. Mark responded to a domestic call involving a gay teen kicked out by his parents. The boy, bruised and scared, reminded him of Jake. Mark ensured he got to a shelter, then drove home fuming. "How can parents do that?" he ranted to Jake. "Promise me you'll always come to me, no matter what." Jake promised, but the incident ignited Mark's activism. He proposed a workshop at the precinct on LGBTQ issues, facing resistance. "We're cops, not social workers," Tom argued, but Mark persisted, gathering data on hate crimes. Surprisingly, the chief approved, and Mark led the session, sharing his story. "My son is gay. That doesn't make him less. It makes me more aware." Jake Sr. approached, a milestone laced with anxiety. He wanted to take Anderson but feared backlash. "What if they don't let us in?" Jake worried. Mark encouraged him. "If they don't, we'll make our own prom." In the end, they went, dancing under twinkling lights. Photos captured their joy, but online trolls attacked when a classmate posted them. "Disgusting," comments read. Jake spiraled, questioning everything. Anderson comforted him, but Mark stepped in. "Those haters don't define you. Your strength does." The summer brought new challenges. Jake got accepted to a college in Boston, where Anderson was already enrolled. Excitement mixed with Mark's emptiness. His nest would be empty. Linda reappeared, wanting to reconnect. Over coffee, she admitted regret. "I should have been there for Jake." Mark was wary but allowed a meeting. Linda's reaction to Jake's sexuality was lukewarm. "As long as he's happy," she said flatly. Jake sensed her discomfort, leading to a heated argument. "You left us. Now you judge me." Mark mediated, urging understanding. It strained their fragile co-parenting. But Jake emerged stronger, realizing he didn't need her approval. Work tensions peaked when Mark investigated a string of anti-gay vandalism. Graffiti targeted LGBTQ-friendly businesses, echoing community divides. One night, during stakeout, Tom confessed his own struggles. "My nephew's gay. I never knew how to talk about it." Their bond deepened, turning Tom into an ally. The case broke when Mark arrested the perpetrators, teens influenced by online hate groups. In court, he testified passionately. "Hate destroys families. I've seen it firsthand." As fall neared, Jake prepared to leave. Packing boxes stirred emotions. Mark found an old photo album, reminiscing about Jake's childhood. "You've grown into an amazing man," he told Jake tearfully. Anderson helped with the move, and the trio shared a bittersweet goodbye at the airport. "Call me anytime," Mark said, hugging them both. Months later, during Thanksgiving break, Jake returned with stories of college life, protests, new friends, self-discovery. Mark hosted a dinner, inviting Emily and even Linda. Laughter filled the house, a far cry from the silence after the revelation. But underlying conflicts remained. Society hadn't changed overnight. Mark reflected on his journey, from shock to acceptance, from protector to advocate. He'd lost some friends but gained purpose. Jake's happiness was his reward. Yet, questions lingered about broader impacts. Would Mark's changes ripple outward? Could one family's story challenge norms? With Jake away at college, Mark's house felt echoingly empty, the silence amplifying his thoughts on the past year's upheavals. He threw himself into work, patrolling Chicago's streets with renewed vigilance, but now with an eye toward injustices he'd once overlooked. One crisp autumn evening, he responded to a disturbance at a gay bar downtown, a fight sparked by homophobic slurs. Breaking it up, Mark arrested the aggressor, a burly man spewing venom. "Freaks like you don't belong here," the man snarled. Mark's response was calm but firm. "Everyone belongs, including my son." The words slipped out, surprising even him, but they felt right. Word of Mark's personal stake spread through the precinct like wildfire. Some officers applauded his bravery. Others whispered about favoritism. His chief pulled him aside. "Reynolds, your advocacy is commendable, but keep it professional." Mark nodded, but inside he seethed. Professionalism had masked prejudices for too long. He joined a police LGBTQ liaison group, attending meetings where stories of discrimination within the force shocked him. "I thought we were better than this," he confided to Tom over beers. Tom shrugged. "Change is slow, but you're pushing it." Meanwhile, Jake thrived in Boston. College offered freedom, queer student groups, inclusive events. He and Anderson joined a campus pride organization, organizing rallies against discriminatory laws. But distance tested their relationship. Late-night calls revealed insecurities. "What if you meet someone else?" Jake asked Anderson once. Anderson reassured him. "You're it for me." Their visits home became highlights, where Mark witnessed their deepening bond. During one, Anderson shared his coming-out story. "My dad cried happy tears." Mark envied that ease, vowing to be more open. A major conflict arose when a national debate on gay marriage reignited. Chicago hosted protests and Mark was assigned crowd control. On one side, supporters waved flags. On the other, opponents chanted scriptures. Mark spotted Jake in the crowd, marching with Anderson. Panic surged. What if things turned violent? He radioed for calm, but clashes erupted. In the chaos, Jake got pepper sprayed. Mark rushed to him, shielding him from the fray. "Dad!" Jake gasped, eyes burning. At the hospital, Mark exploded at his colleagues. "That was my son." The incident made local news, portraying Mark as a conflicted cop. Reporters hounded him. How does a father reconcile duty and family? The publicity brought mixed reactions. Supportive letters poured in, but hate mail too. One anonymous note read, "Traitor to the badge." Mark's promotion stalled. Whispers suggesting his agenda was the cause. He confronted the chief. Is this because of Jake? The chief denied it, but Mark saw the truth. It fueled his resolve. He spoke at a city council meeting, advocating for better training. We protect and serve all, not just some. Applause followed, including from LGBTQ leaders who invited him to events. Jake's world collided with Mark's during winter break. A friend from college, facing family rejection, crashed with them. The young man, Tyler, shared harrowing tales of homelessness. Mark's heart broke. "Stay as long as you need," he offered. Helping Tyler, Mark connected with shelters using his badge for good. Jake beamed. "You're a hero, Dad." But Tyler's presence stirred old fears in Mark. What if Jake faced similar rejection elsewhere? Linda's involvement complicated things. She visited more, trying to bond with Jake. During a tense dinner, she questioned his choices. "Are you sure about Anderson? It's a hard life." Jake snapped. "Harder with unsupportive parents." Mark intervened. "Linda, acceptance isn't optional." She left in tears, but later apologized via text. It was progress, albeit slow. Spring brought high drama. Anderson proposed a road trip to California for a Pride festival. Jake hesitated, worried about Mark's reaction. "Go," Mark encouraged. "Live your life." The trip was eye-opening: parades, speeches, community. But en route, they faced harassment at a rest stop. A group of men taunted them. Jake called Mark in panic. "Dad, what do we do?" Mark guided them. "Get to safety. Call local police." The incident shook Jake, but strengthened his activism. Back home, he organized a school fundraiser for LGBTQ youth. Mark's career hit a crossroads. A high-profile case involved a transgender suspect, and biases in the department surfaced. Mark challenged them, leading to a heated argument with Hale. "You're soft now, Reynolds." Mark stood firm. "I'm fair." The standoff earned respect from younger officers, who sought his advice. As summer approached, Jake interned at a graphic design firm, Anderson by his side. They dreamed of future marriage, kids. Mark listened, imagining walking Jake down the aisle. But societal hurdles loomed. Laws varying by state, ongoing debates. Personal crisis tested Mark. His father, a retired cop with traditional views, visited. Over whiskey, Mark confessed about Jake. "He's gay, Pop." His father paused, then sighed. "Times change. Love him anyway." The approval lifted a weight Mark didn't know he carried. The year culminated in a community forum where Mark debated anti-LGBTQ advocates. Tensions ran high, arguments flying. Jake attended, proud but nervous. Mark's closing: "Family isn't about fitting molds. It's about support." Cheers erupted. Through it all, Mark evolved from reluctant acceptor to fierce ally. Jake's journey mirrored his, finding voice amid adversity. But was change permanent or fragile? As Jake entered his sophomore year, the distance from home allowed him to explore his identity further, but it also unearthed deeper conflicts within the family dynamic. Mark, now a vocal advocate, faced backlash that extended beyond the precinct. Anonymous threats arrived at his door, notes warning him to stay in his lane. He reported them, but investigations stalled. "Probably just cranks," Tom said. But Mark worried for Jake's safety. He installed security cameras, a reminder that acceptance came at a cost. Jake's college life wasn't all smooth. A roommate discovered his relationship with Anderson and outed him to the dorm. Slurs appeared on his door. Jake confided in Mark during a call. "It hurts, Dad. Why can't people mind their own?" Mark's advice was practical. "Document it, report it, and remember, you're stronger than them." Jake did, leading to the roommate's relocation. The experience bonded him closer to Anderson, who suggested therapy. "It helped me," Anderson said. Jake agreed, sessions unveiling suppressed emotions from his parents' divorce. Mark's ex, Linda, attempted reconciliation, attending a Pride event with them. Her presence was awkward. She fidgeted during speeches. Afterward, she admitted, "I'm trying, but it's new to me." Jake appreciated the effort, but trust was thin. A blow-up occurred when Linda suggested conversion therapy in a misguided attempt to help. "That's abuse," Jake yelled. Mark banned her from the house temporarily. "Until you educate yourself." Linda enrolled in online courses, slowly shifting her views. Work for Mark intensified with a partnership between police and LGBTQ organizations. He trained recruits on bias, sharing anecdotes. One session, a young officer confessed his own sexuality. "You're inspiring me, sir." Mark felt purpose, but exhaustion crept in. Long shifts left him drained, questioning if he could sustain the fight. A dramatic twist came during a routine traffic stop. Mark pulled over a vehicle for speeding, only to find the driver was a prominent anti-gay activist known for hate speeches. The man recognized Mark from news clips. "You're that cop with the queer kid." Tensions escalated. The man resisted arrest. Backup arrived, but the incident went viral. Bodycam footage showing Mark's restraint amid provocations. Public opinion split. Some hailed him a hero, others accused bias. The fallout affected Jake. Campus activists invited him to speak about his dad's story. Nervous, he accepted. "Growing up with a cop dad, I hid who I was." But his acceptance changed everything. The talk resonated, but trolls targeted him online. Anderson shielded him, but Jake doubted. "Is it worth the hate?" A heart-to-heart with Mark reaffirmed, "Yes, because silence lets hate win." Family therapy became essential. Sessions with a counselor unpacked years of unspoken pain. The divorce, Mark's absences, Jake's fears. "I felt like I had to be perfect," Jake admitted. Mark teared up. "I never wanted that." Progress was made, bridges rebuilt. Summer brought a roadblock. Anderson's family faced financial woes, threatening his tuition. Jake wanted to help, but resources were limited. Mark stepped in anonymously, donating through a fund. When Anderson found out, gratitude overflowed. "Your family now," he told Mark. Societal clashes peaked during election season. Candidates debated LGBTQ rights, polarizing Chicago. Mark volunteered for voter protection at polls, witnessing intimidation. One voter, a trans woman, thanked him. "Cops like you give hope," countered the negativity. Jake and Anderson's relationship hit a rough patch. Distance and stress led to arguments. "You don't understand my world," Jake accused. A breakup loomed, but a surprise visit from Mark mediated. "Talk it out. Love isn't easy." They reconciled, stronger. Mark's promotion finally came, with commendations for his work. At the ceremony, Jake and Anderson sat front row, beaming. "Proud of you, Dad." But whispers persisted. Did he earn it, or was it pity? As the year closed, a holiday gathering united everyone. Emily, Linda, Tyler, now stable, and friends. Toasts celebrated growth, but underlying tensions reminded of ongoing struggles. Mark pondered the path ahead. Advocacy had costs, but rewards outweighed them. Jake's confidence inspired him daily. Yet, in a divided world, how far could one man's change go? Entering his final college years, Jake embraced leadership in advocacy, but the weight of accumulated experiences began to show cracks in his resolve. Mark noticed during visits. Jake's eyes held a weariness beyond his age. "You okay, son?" Mark asked over coffee in Boston. Jake sighed. "It's exhausting fighting every day." Mark understood. His own battles at work had taken a toll, leading to therapy for burnout. "We rest, then keep going," he advised. A major controversy erupted when a bill proposing bans on LGBTQ education hit Illinois legislatures. Protests swelled in Chicago, and Mark was on duty. Jake flew home to join, standing on the front lines. Clashes with counter-protesters turned ugly. Arrests followed. Mark spotted Jake in the melee, pulling him to safety. "What are you doing here?" Jake retorted, "Fighting for my rights." Their argument later at home was raw. "I can't lose you," Mark pleaded. Jake softened. "You taught me to stand up." Anderson's graduation brought joy amid turmoil. He landed a job in graphic design, proposing they move in together post Jake's degree. Excitement bubbled, but practicalities loomed. Jobs, finances, acceptance. Mark hosted a celebration, toasting their future. Linda attended, genuinely supportive now. I'm happy for you both. Work for Mark shifted gears. Promoted to sergeant, he oversaw diversity initiatives. Training sessions evolved into policy changes, reducing complaints. But a scandal rocked the department. An officer outed and harassed a colleague. Mark led the investigation, ensuring justice. No place for bigotry here, he declared. The case garnered national attention, positioning Mark as a reform leader. Personal growth continued. Mark dated briefly, a woman from the liaison group, but it fizzled. My heart's with my family, he told Jake. Jake encouraged him. You deserve happiness too. A pivotal moment came at a national conference where Mark spoke on policing and LGBTQ relations. Jake and Anderson attended. My journey started with shock, but ended in pride, Mark shared. Standing ovation followed. Backstage, Jake hugged him. You're my hero. But triumphs mixed with tragedies. Tyler, their former houseguest, relapsed into homelessness after a job loss. Mark and Jake rallied support, finding him resources. It highlighted systemic failures, insufficient shelters, mental health gaps. As Jake neared graduation, he interned at an NGO focused on youth rights. A project exposed him to stories of rejected teens, mirroring his fears. We need more allies like you, Dad, he said. Mark volunteered, bridging law enforcement and advocacy. The climax built during Pride Month. Chicago's parade drew record crowds. Mark marched in uniform, a first for the department. Jake and Anderson joined, flags waving. Media captured the moment, a cop dad with his gay son. Viral fame brought acclaim and threats. A stalker targeted Mark, leading to a tense standoff. Resolved safely, it underscored dangers. Graduation day arrived. Jake walked the stage, diploma in hand. Mark cheered loudest, tears streaming. Dinner followed, reflections shared. From that car ride to here, unbelievable, Mark mused. Post-grad, Jake and Anderson moved to Chicago, closer to Mark. They navigated adult life, jobs, apartment hunting. Conflicts arose. Anderson's conservative extended family disinvited them from events. Jake supported him. We'll make our own traditions. Mark retired partially, consulting on reforms. His legacy: changed policies, inspired officers. The family thrived, but society lagged. Debates on rights persisted, reminding of fragility. In retrospect, Mark's unexpected reaction, embrace over rejection, sparked transformation. But was it enough? Is it true that one individual's evolution can spark widespread societal change? Or does true progress require collective effort?